Let's begin. Seta Caxton Ateki from the Liberal Alliance Party. That one, even if a regular legislative election were held in Cameroon, he wouldn't even win a seat as a deputy. The famous Seta Caxton Ateki. He's a complete unknown in the landscape of Cameroonian political struggles. I'll take the next one. Beloboba Maigari. He's an old veteran from Ahidjo's former ruling party, the UNC, and who followed Paul Biya after experiencing some minor setbacks, including a brief imprisonment, since Biya suspected him of tribal allegiance to Ahidjo's old regime, from which he had parted ways painfully. But Beloboba Maigari is a divisive leader. His sphere of influence is his birthplace. He is unknown in the hearts of Cameroonians as someone who could represent a head of state. And he is even less known among Africans. I'll put him at the top. I challenge Africans watching this show to tell me who Caxton Seta Ateki is, who Beloboba Maigari is. Beloboba Maigari is a minor clan leader confined to the Nganderela region, where he has Sebastien. He is not a national leader. He only existed thanks to the successive appointments by Ahidjo and Paul Biya. Does anyone know of a single idea from Beloboba Maigari? A theory, a doctrine, a vision. Is there any contribution by Beloboba Maigari to Cameroonian political order, to Cameroonian political thought that we can remember? Nothing. Besides, he is a loyal minister of Biya. He didn't even formally resign from his position as minister. He is still a member of Biya's government. Biya deliberately let him out to give the impression that there is competition in the country. But this guy does not represent any potential change for the country. He belongs to the old political class, pre-selected by the French, well managed by Ahidjo, and gradually taken over in pieces by Biya. He is a man of the past and of liabilities. He belongs to Biya's political generation. This guy is politically useless for the country as such. And he doesn't even feel like he's being useful. His message is as vague as it is dull and pointless. Let's move on to the next one, Paul Biya. After 42 years, the country is still poor and heavily indebted. After 42 years, 90% of the population is still unemployed. After 42 years, the country still doesn't have a modern road infrastructure between its economic capital and its political capital. The political capital still floods at the slightest rain. The country is a huge garbage dump. 42 years later, the country is in a pitiful state. Towns just 60 kilometers apart take 3 days to reach. Even within the tyrant's own homeland, his tribal region. The failure is undeniable. Paul Biya is someone who should be arrested, tried, sentenced to life in prison, placed under house arrest until his death, and buried with every dishonor. Because he is guilty of a social, economic, diasporic, diplomatic, symbolic, and absolute spiritual disaster. This man is an enemy of the Cameroonian people. He is not someone we can count on for change. Even less so on those he has chosen. Well, Jacques Bouga Hagbe from the Cameroonian National Citizens Movement, this man comes from the IMF and the World Bank. And he says he will apply the IMF and World Bank policies to Cameroon. It's a joke. He's just another joker. The IMF and the World Bank have never developed a single country in the world. In fact, they have no intention of seeing Africa develop. Because if Africa develops, it will no longer need their debt. But they live off debt. So they need fragile countries in order to constantly impose structural adjustment programs on them. Jacques Bouga Hagbe is a joker. He doesn't represent any hope for us. Besides, he's a complete unknown in Cameroonian politics. What has he done in Cameroon? And since when? Where did this guy even come from? They take Issa Teroma Bakary, the biggest lackey of Paul Biya's dictatorship, the most flat. That is to say, we thought that with Kontukomeni, Augustine, we had one of the spokespersons without personality. We had the most useless spokesperson in Cameroonian political history. We thought that when we had Mr. Zeromor, Kontukomeni. But when Issa El Teroma arrived at the spokesperson there, the Cameroonians cried. An individual without personality. Every one of his sentences, the head of state, what the head of state said, according to the thinking of the head of state, President Paul Biya, this guy who spent his time playing the fool. Against the Cameroonian people, for Paul Biya, he stands up less than a year before the election deadline and claims to be an opponent. And he says that he honestly regrets everything he has done. Yes, people like that Teroma, the Cameroonian people must stop them, put them in prison. Because you can't spend 20 years of your life saying everything he said against the opposition, against the Cameroonian people, and then, in less than 3 months, claim that you've changed. Honestly, you met Saul on the road to Damascus. And now what do you want? No, that guy, Issa Tiroma, when the Bias are arrested, Tiroma must be arrested too. Beloboa Maigari, all those guys must be arrested. They are accountable for Paul Bia's record. Alright, now let's talk about Iram Samuel Iodi, this young man. He was put there to give the illusion that Cameroonian youth are part of this affair. But Iram Samuel Iodi is unknown in Cameroonian political struggle. When did he start in politics, that one? Where did he start? How did he start? In which political battle of his generation has he been involved? These are people who are just picked up like that by Paul Biya from the families of his loyalists to serve as extras. Iram Samuel Iodi. Who is he in politics? He's a nobody. He himself knows that he's one of those who shouldn't complain. He should never say that he was beaten or that he won an election. He's just an extra. Pierre Kwemo, these are the businessmen being used as tools. Because they need to say that West Cameroon is represented in the election. They took him and put him there. Just look at this Pierre Kwemo. What does he even represent in West Cameroon? Everyone knows Pierre Kwemo as a man mainly driven by his own immediate interests. He is annoying the day that Pierre Kwemo is known by Cameroonians for carrying what message? What message does it carry? So that even someone dreams that this guy, if we stand behind him, we will achieve change for the country. Pierre Kwemo. Do Cameroonians know a guy like that? Cabral Libi. His party, the PCRN, was created by the Presidency of the Republic, by the Office of the Presidency of the Republic. It is a party that was created with the aim of weakening the union of the populations of Cameroon in its traditional stronghold. In these traditional strongholds in the Bassa region and in the West, parties were created to break up the entire traditional mobilization base of the UPC. It is within this base that Cabral Libi thrives. But Cabral Libi is continuing the work that Augustin Frederick Kodok of the Pro-Bia UPC was doing. These are opponents who are compatible with the regime. He may sometimes give the impression of having radical positions on certain issues, but he is very prudent. On October 12th, he will not claim victory. He will not call for mobilization to say that he has won. Because he himself knows that he has not won over, has not conquered the hearts of Cameroonians on a national level. He is seen as a politician being used to keep the Bassa region divided from the rest of the Cameroonian people. And everything is done to isolate him and his PCRN. They don't want him to get out of that situation. And they will give them a result colored in that way. Because that's his role. Professor Nkuvanda, who is one of the masterminds behind the creation of the PCRN, has clearly shown that it was created to distract the stronghold of Cameroonian nationalist resistance. Serge Espoir Matomba is a young man who is more or less known on social media since he is part of the younger generation. But his party is also isolated in the Mango region. He can say whatever he wants. His party is basically made up of his classmates who know him a little and so on. It's a party whose purpose is to fragment the stronghold of Cameroonian resistance, the littoral region. It was created for that reason and is tolerated for that reason. And Matomba, on October 12th, he can't stand up and say in front of Paul's regime, I won, my votes were stolen. No, he's there to look for a place within the regime. A place in alliance with the regime. That's why he was allowed to stay. Akere Muna is the son of Salomon Tandem Muna. He comes from the English-speaking Bamileke region, from the northwest, the Momo division. He comes from a powerful family that has long made pacts with Ahijo and with Bia, the Munas. There isn't a single Muna who could call for revolution in Cameroon, in the name of God. A good part of his family has been in government. His sister, he has a sister who was in government for a very long time. His father was president of the National Assembly and vice president under Bia and under Ahijo. So what is he coming here to tell us? Akere Muna is a bourgeois of the Cameroonian neo-colonial system. And he can't shake it off because he's tied to this system. He's rooted in this system. He's a product of it. So who do we take? Joshua as well. He doesn't have the stature of chairman ni John Fruandi. Joshua too has never been able to make the SDF a national party again. I know Joshua a little too, who is a man. So I salute his modesty. He is a modest and humble man. I salute Joshua for that. I even say that he is a brother and a friend. But Joshua too, my brother and friend, knows very well that he and ni John Fruandi, he is like night and Fruandi is like day. But if the one who was like day, who won in 1992, couldn't exercise power, it's not you, who are like night compared to him, who will tell us in 2025 that you are going to win. Joshua also doesn't have a quarter of Fruandi's charisma, and he knows very well that his role is to lead the SDF to acknowledge its defeat. In fact, in 2018, he was among the first opposition party leaders who rushed to pledge allegiance at the Unity Palace after the fraud, the umpteenth fraud by Biya. So Joshua is going to do the same thing again. He's my brother, he's my friend. He's one of the few politicians who accompanied me to my father's funeral. I will be eternally grateful to him for that. My criticisms here are political criticisms. But Joshua is my friend. I can eat and drink at his table and tell him exactly what I'm saying here. Joshua, you know yourself that you're not going to win and that you don't even have a quarter of Timan's popularity. So you're going to take part just to legitimize the regime. And that's my real issue. Who do we take? Mrs. Tomaino Hermine Patricia Tomaino Ndamdioya. But she is an heiress of a party locked in the noun, which was created to divide the Bamoons and prevent the Bamoon from fully participating in the national liberation movement as their grandson, Dr. Félix Moumié, did. I hope you know that Dr. Félix Moumié is a son of the Bamoon country. He married a Bulu woman, Marthe Komeni married Moumié. And he espouses the Cameroonian national cause. But Ndamdioya Joya, although he is a minister known for his rigor, when he created the UDC, everyone knew that the UDC was created to divide the Bamoon people and control them. That is to say, to prevent the Bamoon people from participating in the national revolution. Since the Sultanate is automatically with the RDPC, since the Sultan is by default a pillar supporting the regime, they created an opposition to the Sultan, but an opposition that is compatible with the regime, to prevent the Bamoun region from becoming the breeding ground for a national opposition. That's how the UDC was allowed to emerge and develop. Tomaino herself knows that she only counts her votes there, in her tribe, in the noun. That's it. When it's over, she goes back to Fumban as well. That's the list of so-called candidates. And just think, there are people who get up and tell us we should rally behind one of them. All these individuals are creations of Paul Biya. All these individuals were only tolerated as candidates because they serve Paul Biya's interests. Because they are legitimizers. They come to justify, embellish, and pose so that people can say there was something like an election. Do you truly realize just how fundamentally absurd it is for anyone to stand up in this day and age and say that we should all rally and get behind a figure like Issa Tiroma Bakari, or that we should throw our support behind, for instance, Cabral Libi, or even that we should consider getting behind Joshua as well? Let's get behind Bello Bello Boba Maigari. Do you realize what an insult that is? It's an insult to the intelligence of the Cameroonian people. It's an insult to the intelligence of the Cameroonian people. And I'll tell you why. Share the show widely. They're trying everything to interrupt us. Share widely. Share widely.